Hey guys, welcome to today. Today we're going to be solving literal equations, which is just solving for one variable. That'll make a little more sense as we get through it. It should be pretty short notes. We're also going to dive into, at least dabble, if you may, into a little bit of word problems. Not too crazy, but a little bit. So let's first start off with our warm-up. So we have 7n plus 6 equals a 4n minus 9. No distribution, no like terms to combine, so we have to move our variable to be on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 4n on both sides here, and I'm going to get a 3n plus 6 is equal to negative 9. And I said this in the intro video, but I'm going to mention it again, folks. Make sure you are writing down the problems and actually trying to solve them before I go through them. That's going to be the way you get the most out of this. So now I have all my n's on the same side. It's a two-step equation. I need to then subtract 6 on both sides. Here's where a lot of students will make a mistake, because we have a negative 9 minus a 6. That's actually going to give us a negative 15. We divide both sides by 3, and we get n equals negative 5. Not too bad of a problem at all. I only gave you 2 warm-up questions today because the second one's kind of longer, not really, but it kind of goes through all the steps, and we have a couple negatives in there. So let's go ahead and go through this. So I'll distribute that negative 5 to both terms, and I'll distribute that 2 to both terms. That's our first step, that distribution. So I have a 2x here. Then I'm going to take that negative 5. I'm going to multiply it by x. Negative 5 times an x is going to give me a negative 5x. Negative 5 times a negative 3, well, a negative times a negative is a positive 15. So now I'm going to do the same thing with 2. We have 2 times x and 2 times negative 10. 2 times x is just a 2x, and 2 times a negative 10, because subtract 10 is the same thing as minus 10. 2 times negative 10 is negative 20. So now we need to combine like terms. So I look on the right side and there's nothing to combine. I can't combine those. One has a variable, one does not. But looking over here on the right side or left side, we do have 2 terms that we can combine. We can actually do 2x minus 5. So doing a 2x minus a 5x, little scribbles there, we get a negative 3x plus a 15 is equal to a 2x minus 20. So now it's similar to the problem that we just solved over here. We have variables on both sides, and we have constants on both sides, just what we had here. So we need to move our variable now. Get all our variables to the same side. I'm going to add 3x to both sides. You could subtract 2x from both sides. You'll end up with the same answer, but this way we avoid some negatives in front of our variable. So now I have a 5x minus a 20. I'm trying to get 5x all by itself, so I'm going to add 20 to both sides to get rid of minus 20. And I get a 35 is equal to a 5x. To get x all by itself, divide both sides by a 5. And I get that a 7 is equal to x. And there's your warm-up. Let's go ahead and dive into some literal equations now. Like I said earlier, these problems aren't necessarily tricky. It's a little harder for students because our answer isn't going to look like an answer. And we are going to be following the same rules, but there's going to be multiple variables. Sometimes there won't be even numbers, there will only be variables, but we still follow our algebraic rules. The hardest part about these problems is to actually read them. This says 6g minus 7k equals 1. Solve for g. That's how the problem will be set up. It'll say solve, and it'll say for some variable. So we want to solve for g. So g is the one we're worried about. So I'm going to get everything away from g. To get everything away from g, I'm going to add 7k to both sides. That's going to get 6g all by itself is equal to, I can't add 1 and a 7k because 1 has a variable, 1 has that 7 has that k on it. So it's just going to be 1 plus 7k. And then the last step, well, I still have this 6 in front of my g. I don't like that 6 in front of my g, so we got to get rid of it. So to get rid of that 6 right in front of our g, we have to do the opposite operation. Right now it's multiplying, so I'm going to have to divide. So I divide this side by 6 and divide everything over here by 6. So g is equal to 1 plus 7k divided by 6. This whole thing is your answer. I know it doesn't look like one, but it is. You solve for a variable. You got the variable all by itself. This is similar to our slope-intercept, turning things into slope-intercept form, getting y all by itself. It's the same concept. Let's look at some other problems. Here's one without any numbers, and it's actually really easy. This is a one-step equation. It says a is equal to length times width. This is just a cursive L because a lowercase l looks like a 1, so I just wrote the cursive L. And we're solving for w here, so we're trying to get w all by itself. Well, area is equal to length times width. That is a formula that you actually know. If I'm trying to solve for the width, I can rewrite this equation to make it easier to solve for the width instead of working backwards all the time. Well, I look length times width, and I'm trying to get rid of L. So what's the opposite of multiplying by length? Dividing by length. So if I divide this side by length, and I divide this side by length, those cancel out, and I get a divided by a lowercase l, I'm just writing it as a cursive L, is equal to w. L is the same thing as this. This is just a lowercase l. So now you know a little cursive. That whole thing, though, is our answer. Width is equal to area divided by length. Let's look at the next problem. We have 5m plus r equals m. So we have our variables on both sides this time, and we're trying to solve for that variable, for m. If you haven't already, go ahead and pause the video and try solving it yourself. Okay, let's go ahead and solve this now. So first step is to get all the variables to the same side. So I'm going to subtract 5m on both sides. Now you can subtract m on both sides, but then you're going to get a 0 over there and you guys are going to get confused. So let's not do that, and let's just get m, which is a 1m, minus 5m is a negative 4m. So now I'm trying to get m all by itself. Well, what's in front of m right now? That negative 4. So how do I get rid of a negative 4? You divide. Because it's not adding, because this is being multiplied right here, and we're undoing that multiplication. So we're dividing by negative 4, and then I have to do it on this side as well. So r divided by a negative 4 is equal to m. That whole thing is your answer. Let's look at one last problem. Negative 9x plus 4y is equal to a negative 16x. This time we're solving for y, not for x. So we're not solving for that variable that's on both sides, we're just solving for that y. Go ahead and try it on your own if you haven't already. Alright, let's go ahead and go through that. We have plus 9x on both sides to get that 4y all by itself. I get a 4y is equal to, these I can actually combine because they both have x's. So negative 16 plus 9 is negative 7. And it still has that x on it. So now you still have to get that 4 that's in front of your y away from the y. So what's the opposite of multiplying by 4? Dividing by 4. So I divide this side by 4, divide this side by 4, and I get a y is equal to a negative 7x divided by 4. On all of these problems, I solved the problems the same way we solve equations. I just worked backwards to get a variable all by itself. That's all there is to it. We're just solving for one variable. Now I got one more problem. We're going to look at a word problem. Let's dive into it. The first thing you need to do when solving a word problem is to actually read the problem. So let's go ahead and read it. The width of a rectangular kitchen is 7 feet less than 3 times the length. Find the dimensions of the kitchen if the perimeter is 82 feet. Go ahead and pause the video. Try to see if you can draw a picture and draw the length and width, like what those should be or what our equation should be. And try your best on it, and then unpause the video and keep going. Okay. Let's go through it. So the width of the rectangular kitchen is 7 feet less than 3 times the length. Well, if I have a rectangular kitchen, and I'll always recommend drawing a picture because it's going to help you visualize it. Alright, so if our lengths are right here and right here, remember that's that lowercase l. These are lengths. That's how long our rectangle is. Well, our width is 7 feet less than 3 times the length. So break that down. Break just that part down. If you have 3 times the length, what do you need to do to it to get it equal to the width? Well, the width is 7 feet less than 3 times the length. So you got to take 7 away from 3 times the length. And remember, that's not just on this width, it's on this width as well. So you have 3 length minus 7. It says find the dimensions of the kitchen if the perimeter is 82 feet. Remember, perimeter is all the sides added together. It's the outline of a rectangle. So I need to add length plus length, which is just 2 times length. And I need to add 3L minus 7 and 3L minus 7. You could also do just 2 times 3L minus 7, or you could add them together. It doesn't matter really which way you do it. But if I do it this way, I'd have 6L, and 2 times minus 7 is minus 14. I'm going to add all these together because I know that all the lengths plus all the widths is equal to the perimeter. Well, what's the perimeter that it gave us? 82. So what we really did there is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width equals 82. And we just replaced this width with this expression, and we distributed, and now we're solving this new equation right here. So let's go ahead and solve it with our skills. Well, I have 2 length and 6 length. 2L plus 6L, that's 8L, minus 14 equals 82. Well, two-step equation. Let's add 14 to both sides. And I get an 8L is equal to a 96. So now we just need to divide both sides by 8. Divide this side by 8 and you just get L. Divide 96 by 8 and you get 12. So you know that the length is 12 feet. So to find the width, we need to actually solve what they gave us. They told us that the width is 3 times the length minus 7. Well, we know the length. The length is 12. So let's plug 12 into here. So 3 times 12 minus 7. So if you do 3 times 12, you get a 36. And 36 minus 7, that's 29. So the width is 29 feet. So you got the width, you got the length. Those are the dimensions. I hope that made some sense. If it didn't, don't worry. Word problems is something that's tricky for a lot of students. But we're really going to focus on literal equations this week. So as long as you understood that, you're good. Hopefully that helps you on your activity today. I'll see you guys later.